So today is the last Tuesday of November, and we do check-ins on Tuesdays. So it's the last one for November. The TBR for December has been posted. That video is up, and it's a very relaxed one. I will have some kind of a reading game for us to start playing in January. I just honestly didn't have enough time. I made a board, but it didn't look very pretty, and I was like, I don't want to carry this through the whole year of art shame. So I'm going to sit down probably this weekend, and I'm going to go ahead and finish that. Other things I'm going to finish before we get to the reviews, things that have not been forgotten, but just I have a few more days in the month and I just need to finish up reading a little bit more, going back and finding a few quotes and writing a couple reviews. So for Hag of the Hills by JTT Writer, this will still count into November's TBR. I just have not finished it just yet, but I am not leaving it out. It is going to be done before the end of the month. Perfectly Arranged, I have read it, by Liana George. I have read it. I need to write the review. I will get that done. I just have not done it. I've been trying to read, and some of these I just haven't sat down and written them. The other two that I'm going to finish before the end of November, and they're my focus for the next two to 3 days, is going to be Discovery's End by Liz Hamilton and Hamilton. I'm about halfway through both of them and I need to finish them. So I'm going to finish both of those, review those, and I think I'm all caught up on Liz Hamilton for the year. She had a big year for publishing books. I know that I read 5. So after I read these 3, there was 2 before that at least. So there's 5 in a year. That's a ton. She was very busy, and they're very good books too. They're dystopians with spice, so definitely check those out. So first book that I read and reviewed was actually an audiobook, and it was through NetGalley, and it is called Back in the Burbs, and by Tracy Wolff and Avery Flynn. There's 2 authors, and I gave this one 4 stars, and I gave it 2 on Spice. And there is going to be a second book, Heading for the Hills, and I have added that one to my TBR. It is not published yet, but I'm keeping an eye out for it. I want that one. I want to read it. This was a very good story. She has a husband that got to go to school, and she waited and started being like a receptionist. She wasn't fairly paid, like pretty much abuse, but she didn't know it was abuse their whole marriage. He runs off with somebody else, and then she's just like, ugh. And everybody's doing the whole like shame thing, like what did you do, or what didn't you do, or go get him back, or you can't live without him, like go fix this. And then the ex-husband, the soon-to-be ex-husband, is trying to get her to completely leave the marriage without taking any assets whatsoever, like no money, just sign it off. You don't need the money, like you didn't deserve it. And in the meantime, her aunt died and left her a house that she's decided to move into. There's all these HOA issues going on. She's got a hot attorney neighbor that lives next door. She's got a handyman that's interested in her. And then there's another family secret that comes crawling out that completely explains why her parents were being so awful during her whole breakup and blaming her for it. Like they just accepted some messed up stuff in their relationship and was putting it on their kid. Normal stuff. So I gave this one 4 stars, 2 on Spice. I definitely enjoyed the fact that she showed what like toxic relationships can look like towards the end, obviously, but then how it really affects like that healthy relationship that you have after that really that person has to be patient with you, that they are probably going to get pushed away, and that they always say that second relationship, the first relationship after the toxic one, is always the hardest. And I really felt like the author really depicted that in her story. Both of them did. Tracy Wolff and Avery Flynn did a good job of depicting how that looks in real life, in real time. Is realistic for me, and I definitely enjoyed the pursuit of the men in the story. It was very fun. It was 2 on Spice. It wasn't anything crazy, but I expect it'll probably be a bit more spicy in book 2 just from the tone of the end. I think that's going to happen. So that was a NetGalley read, Back in the Burbs, for Tracy and Wolff and Avery Flynn, and Heading for the Hills will be book 2. It's not out. I will let you know when we get our hands on that one. More After the Break was the second one by Jen Maxfield. This one is a news reporter, Jen Maxfield, who did some stories, obvious news stories, a while ago, 2011, and then forward 2000. I think there might have been some 2008, 2009, and then she goes back to the stories, the victims or the people who were involved in the news settings, and she asked them what happened after everybody left from that time to now, and how did your life turn out. And they're very actually interesting reads. It is more of like a study read than it is like they don't turn them into characters. They tell you the story very straight up, very forward, which is enjoyable, but I personally just kind of felt like I was reading a newspaper, which is not a problem, but I just did not love it as much as I was hoping to. So that was More After the Break by Jen Maxfield. I gave that one 3 stars. The next one was Christmas at Copper Mountain by Jane Porter. We have a theme with Jane Porter. And I gave this one 4 stars and 2 on Spice. It was like a slow burn romance for sure. This one is where both people are widower, and he owns some kind of a ranch. She's there as like a housemaid that's been called in by a temp service. He has kids that show up. She, due to the reason that she's a widow, like freaks out and is like, I have to leave. And like he's upset and doesn't understand. And then there's definitely like this forced proximity, like kind of like, I guess, you know, where he's being gruff and then she like melts his heart and the other way around. So I think it's just 2 very broken people that found each other, and they definitely can relate to each other in ways that they can't relate to other people. And I did think it was a very slow burn, very enjoyable read. The spice doesn't come till the very end almost, but there is a little bit in there for you. So I would say it's more of like a wholesome Christmas read. And then we read another audiobook on NetGalley, Rose Petal Graves, Olivia Wildstein. There were so many audiobooks because my kids were on break and we've been renovating the house, so I really didn't have time to sit, but I really wanted to get those NetGalley numbers down, so I really tried to really take off the list for those. Not that I need to explain it, but that is why it's very uncommon to have so many more audiobooks than it is physical books read. So Rose Petal Graves, Olivia Wildstein. I gave this one, it is a series, number 1. I gave this one 4 stars and 1 on Spice. It does kind of have more of like a young adult kind of vibe to it. Definitely. It is a fantasy romance. I wouldn't really say it's a dark romance so much. It is fairies. First off, so there's humans that own like a cemetery, a funeral home. There's a mom, a dad, and a daughter. The daughter's away at school. The mom ends up dying suddenly. They don't know why. It turns out that the daughter has some kind of fairy blood, that the rowan trees in the graveyard like give the fairies power, and there's hunters and there's all kinds of things going on. So when she comes back after her mom is gone, all of this becomes like known to her, and all these people come around and start like trying to get her to go to their side and do this and do that, and you're a hunter and take this talisman off, and that wind chime doesn't let me in your house, like all these things. She finds a book. It just unravels a whole bunch. Now there's like a love triangle. Somebody's like marked her and can like read her thoughts. She hates him. She maybe likes his weird brother. Like it's a mess, but we love it. A fanciful fairy mess. So that was Rose Petal Graves by Olivia Wildstein. That was book 1. I would probably read the next book in the series. I haven't looked, I'm sure it's out. I haven't looked to see if it's out, but that is something that I'm going to add to my want to read list. I would be interested in continuing on with that series. My baby doesn't want to go to bed. This Vicious Grace by Emily Theed. I really did. I thought that it was very unique. I enjoyed the battle scene at the end. It just really was a very slow moving story until about 2/3 of the way in, and then it just like whizzed by. And that was my only complaint with this one, really, was just that like the way it was done. This one is definitely a forbidden love kind of situation, and then there is plenty of action in it too towards the end of it. And it is from a female perspective mainly, but I do think that it is a very diverse read. It's a fantasy. You'll love it. Yes, there's a little bit of romance in it, but it's not heavy. And that is This Vicious Grace by Emily Theed. The next one was Death by Beach Reads. This was, I don't give 1-2 stars very often, but this one, Death by Beach Reads by Eva Gates, had 1 star. I just didn't like the storyline. I didn't like the narration of the audiobook. I did not like the flow of it whatsoever. I'm so sorry. Like, that doesn't happen very often, but that it happened, and I try to be as gracious as possible, but like I said, I want to be honest and let you guys know really what I think, and I try and be polite and professional when I'm letting people know and give exact details of why I don't like it, but I never mean to hurt anybody's feelings or be disrespectful. I do know that books are something that somebody puts a lot of time and effort into, and I never mean to hurt anyone's feelings by saying so. I am just trying to be honest about whether I really enjoyed it or not, and that was just not one for me. But other people, who I'm sure, would definitely enjoy it, and I always try and put that in my reviews as well, that just because I don't like it doesn't mean it wouldn't be good for someone else. So that's that. I'm sorry. We have a 5-star read. Yay. It is not a newer read, but I've been working on this one for quite a while. The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, I gave 5 stars to. This one is a collection that they put together of first-hand accounts, journal accounts of people who, after, it's like it's called the Big Migration. That's what happened, where everybody who was in the South, once slavery had ended and the oppression was still there, like they still had to treat white people who were not of color, with like a ridiculous amount of like respect and segregation, like still moving off buses, still getting out of their way, not looking them in the face. They weren't allowed to complain about bad business deals. Like they weren't allowed to argue that. They just had to like get messed over and just be like, oh well, I didn't make any money, but I worked all year. Like they were not really, even though they say they were free, that the people were freed, they did not live a life like everybody else. It was not equal. It was very unfair, and it was very much accepted in society to treat them this way. And so people moved, they migrated to other places where they thought they'd have more opportunity, there'd be more jobs, and it kind of just goes through the whole history of how after slavery, how it affected the people, how it affected communities, how it affected our society, and how really eye-opening it is, of the things that people went through and the things that were done and the things that society really just didn't see as anything alarming to like take care of right now. Some people did, obviously, yes, some people did, or nothing would have changed, but just the majority of people just really didn't see it as a whole country problem. They saw it as those people, like it was very segregated to like that's their problem, even though it was done to them, that they did not have the opportunities, that they were being oppressed. They were still being judged as if they had the same as everybody else. And it gave a very good perspective, I think. I think it really gave a lot of empathy to the situation as well. Like if you're not well versed in it and you don't know, because we're not really taught a bunch of that, like I wasn't anyways, and I really think that it's good for us all to understand and to see what that was like. It's just a perspective that I really think a lot of people would benefit from, and that just out of respect, that knowledge should be passed down so that people understand really what that looks like and what it does to people, a community, to families. Even the way that they raised their children was different because they were afraid that oppression would be a danger, and so they taught their children how to submit severely even when it wasn't fair, because they thought that they were protecting their kids, because they probably were. But is that fair to put parents in that position? Absolutely not. But that's what happened. And like it was such an amazing, mind-blowing, and very like trigger, watch out for the triggers in that book. But it is a book I will probably come back and read again, because I feel like a second read would really give me a lot more. I think that definitely it's something that you could get more information from the second time around. So yes, I really like that one. It was a 5-star read. The next one would be The Monster's Bones by David K. Randall. This was a NetGalley audiobook, very informative. I thought it was going to be more of something I could share with my kids. No, this was a very like adult, archaeology loving dinosaur book for sure. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that like it is a very informative. You're going to get a lot of information on how fossils were acquired, how people took like credit for them, how like the scramble for like mine, not yours, how it really wasn't fair to people who actually found the fossils, and then people who had enough money and like the nice names and the connections to claim responsibility for it, even though it wasn't their work or their discovery. It's very interesting to see how that progressed, and how science progressed, and how they didn't always accept dinosaurs or even fossils as like an actual study. So that was interesting to see how that became part of also the scientific culture that we have now, where everybody pretty much widely accepts that dinosaurs did exist. Like most people can say, yes, I do accept that. So that book explains how we got here. The Bodyguard by Catherine Center is another audiobook, and it was a romance. This one I gave 4 stars, and it was 3 on Spice. The Bodyguard, it is we start out with a lady, the main character. She works at like a bodyguard company where like they hire them to like keep them safe, to protect them, like background checks, surveillance, like all kinds of things like that. But it's not like Rent-A-Cop. They are like assassin level. So it's a female. Her mother dies. She has an awful boyfriend, just terrible. He and her best friend end up being not so great people, and he dumps her like right after her mom dies, which is pretty crappy. And then she has to compete to like get this new job position that she's hoping to get. She has to compete with her ex-boyfriend, and it's like ugh. But it's not a job where anybody can leave. So then she gets assigned by her boss to protect a movie star, and he's a very spicy, steamy movie star that she's actually had a thing for, like a little movie crush, not like she ever meant to meet him. And so now she's going to be bodyguarding him, which is very interesting. I've never really heard a story where the male is protected by a female, not because it can't be done, it's just not very often that you hear that. I'm sure it happens in real life. There are female bodyguards, I'm sure there's female security. We just don't normally hear it, and I really enjoyed kind of the role switch there. I enjoyed progressiveness. Get it done. So 4 on the story, 3 on the spice, and I have to say ha 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 to the ex-boyfriend. That's all we can say. The next one was Bet on It by Jodie Slaughter. This one I thought I was gonna love because it was about bingo. It's about like a friends with benefits that turns into something more. I did not like the narration. I did not enjoy how that gentleman talked to her. Outside of the bedroom, he was an absolute... I did not enjoy him. I did not enjoy him at all. Like, in the bedroom, that guy knows what to say. But outside the bedroom, no. No, he did not. He did not. And I don't know, the narration to me, I just really didn't enjoy the delivery of it. So I gave it a 2. I was really hoping it would be higher. I really had high hopes for this one. But I gave it a 2 on the story. I gave it a 3 on spice. Like the spicy scenes in that book are on point, but the rest of it just wasn't my cup of tea. But the spice is there. That's Bet on It by Jodie Slaughter, which was also a NetGalley audiobook. The next NetGalley audiobook, we had a lot of them this month. 4 Ways to Wear a Dress by Jillian Libby. I gave this one 3 on the story and 3 on spice. This one is very much a traveling pants, like an adult version of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. I'm not sure if you've read that. Most of us have when we were younger, but this is 4 Ways to Wear a Dress, and pretty much she loses her job. She's like, oh well, forget it, I'm just gonna go see my friend who's an influencer. She goes to the surfer island, then she meets like her best friend's brother Petey. It turns out that they have like a little fake romance that they put on social media, like we're fake married, fake dating, and then it turns into something more. And there's this dress that the friend group passes around, kind of like they did the jeans in the other story, and they're supposed to bring good luck. And it's just it's a fun read. I really did enjoy it. It was a bit kind of like, how would I say, it's not new age is not a problem. It's more that it was very like, most of the characters in there are very shallow, which they're supposed to be, but we just didn't really get a lot of like oomph about it. And it was kind of interesting to me how everybody on the island, even though I understand it's their livelihood, it's how they make money, they need their reputations online to stay a certain way. I really felt that like the way they handled one of the characters getting a divorce, like in this like we have a perfect lifestyle kind of like community where they're all trying to purvey that, from what is explained, that's what they're trying to put off into like the internet world. So when one of them is going through a hard time and having a divorce, they're like, keep it quiet, da, da, da. Like nobody really asked her how she's doing, or like, are you okay? Do you need anything? It was just like, keep it on lockdown, like watch yourself. Like I kind of thought that was very toxic, and it was never really like addressed that like, hey, like we're not doing that. Like everybody just accepted that that was how it was gonna be. Even some of the characters even had said that they expected it to be that way. So I mean, 3 on that, 3 on the spice. Her and Petey did have a spicy minute or two. It took a little time, but it did happen. I like that book. The Kimono Tattoo by Rebecca Copeland was another, I had the physical copy and the audiobook, so I switched between the 2 of them. This one I gave a 3. It was more of like a murder mystery, very intriguing read. You need to pay attention to it. I did enjoy it. Lots of tattoos, lots of artwork, lots of secrets, lots of like hush hush tones, and then like it was cute how like the lady, even though like she wasn't part of the story too much, how she used her tattoos to express not only herself but also to connect with her lover at the same time, like was a very beautiful kind of dark thing, but it was sweet that she was able to find that in the end. It's just sad that like we didn't get to hear more of her story, or that she wasn't one of our main characters. She was kind of just a passing part of the history and the story, and I would have liked to know more about her life and kind of what happens. I think that a sub story of her and that position and how she came to be the way that she was would have been really interesting to read, because we didn't get to really see that much. There was a whole other story. This was a whole different story, but I'm just saying that if they had taken that and turned into another, it could have been a totally separate story, and I liked that part. It really got me thinking. And then for this weekend we did a readathon. I did a readathon, and it was for the Katie and Bray PA on Instagram. They were doing a book tour for Dragon's Blood by Jane Aptova. They had previously done one for Kiss of Sight, and I had missed the tour date. I believe we had COVID at the time, and so I missed the book date and just ended up posting the blurb. And I thought, what a better time. What would be a better time? There wouldn't be a better time to read Kiss of Sight and Dragon's Blood, because Dragon Blood was the second book, and there's going to be a third book. So Kiss of Sight I gave 4 on the storyline, 4 on the spice. It was pretty much a story of 2 of the dragon people that have dragon blood in them finding a mate, and it explains like pretty much the layout of how the mating works, how the dragon blood works, how like you really shouldn't be marrying people who don't mate with you, who you aren't marked with, who you don't bond with, and what happens. And it was spicy from the beginning, like the get-go. Like I was kind of worried at first that all it was going to be was smut, because it was just so heavy on the smut, and I think they were just trying to really grab your attention. But I was like, ugh, what's gonna, like, that's a lot, and what's going on? And like there was just some really confusing parts. Like she says like my earthly brother after something spicy happens, and it's very much just like, oh, but he's not really her earthly brother. It just means that they both have dragon's blood, so it's fine. Like there was no familiarity going on, but like they really get you, like you have to pay attention. Like she tricks you for sure. I enjoyed it, and very spicy. And then the storyline really starts to play out about 2/3 of the way through, and then it doesn't stop until the end. Then Dragon Blood I gave a 5-star. It is like she levels up. It's like, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the TV show Versailles, but it pretty much, the king in the second story is like the king in Versailles. Like he's after everyone. Like everybody is a meal, everybody is a pleasure, and he can have as much as he wants, and everybody just expects he's gonna take it. And then he's got his friend who's like, oh, I love this girl, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be bonding with her, but I'm going to marry her anyways. So it's like 2 men that have the dragon's blood that are completely ignoring the rules and just not caring and just going about their time. Granted, the king did lose, but lose out on a person, on someone, and there is a lot of guilt there. But it's just like, it was so much political intrigue this time and a little less spice, that I really thought that she really did level up on the second story, like the second book. I cannot wait for the third one, like just the layers that she could probably add to it. And it really feels as that's what she's doing. Like she started with the simple layers and she's just stacking on from there, which is what series are supposed to do. That's why we read so many books in a row, because you get the layers. So we're going to go ahead and call this part 1 of November's TBR wrap-up, as I still have the other 4 to write reviews for, and I will just do a little mini vlog and tag it in the comments here so that you can go to part 2. It's probably going to be the next video to post, but just in case not, I will tag it in the comments below so you can find it. The other 4 that I'm going to be reviewing is Perfectly Arranged by Leanna George. There is Heg of the Hill by JTT Ryder, and then Liz Hamilton. I will be finishing up the Discoveries and In the Final Storm and writing reviews for those before the end of November. And then the TBR for December is posted. It's up. There's a blog about it too, so if you want to go through and use the prompts, or there is actually a second, I wanted to make sure I posted that. There is a second blog that I found that I didn't use the prompts for to pick my TBR. So if you don't like the first one, there is a second option. I posted their YouTube videos so they get full credit for it. And I went ahead and posted the prompts below so that if you don't want to watch the full video, you can see the prompts. But it is their work. They get the credit for it. I was just sharing with you guys as it was something that I did. And I really enjoyed doing it. And I thought that I wanted to give you the opportunity as well, and give them a follow, give them a share, give them a shout out. I think that just November was a pretty good month. We had 2 5-star reads, which 5-star reads really don't happen that often. I think that 14 books that's a lot. I'm amazed we did 14 books. Even though they're audiobooks, that's still a lot of reading and writing to do. So I hope that December will be just as full, the 14 books, I hope that we'll do at least 14. Hopefully we'll finish our TBR and have to add more, but you know, if not, that's fine too. So I'm planning I'm planning hopefully a trip to Barnes and Nobles to get a few of the books that were picked for me from the readers group that I did not have on hand. So I'm hoping to get some of those and add them to January. Since she went through all the trouble to pick them, we should read them. I should read them. You should listen to me read about them, talk about the reading them. So that will be a plan, is the bookstore. Also, the library here, my local library, is doing that book sale again where it's like $1 a book, and then on the last day it's $5 for a whole bag of books. So I'll be going and loading up on those. I'm trying to get my Goodreads all like filled up with all the books I want to try and find, because even though they're used books, like, give them to me. And then if I end up getting extras, I can do a big unhaul and fill the local little libraries again. That was really fun, and everybody seemed to really enjoy that video. So I think that it's going to be really fun. January is going to be even better with the TBR board, and I'm going to get more and more ideas. I appreciate all the books you guys have been sending me, all the recommendations, and I appreciate your comments and your follows on the channel. It has been a great year 2 for me on the book blog, and this is my first couple months here on YouTube. So I hope that we continue to grow and I continue to meet more of you, and we find more and more authors that we enjoy reading together. Thank you guys for visiting with me. I hope that you enjoyed November's reads and that it encourages you to pick up one of the books and try reading it yourself. I look forward to December and the holidays with you as well. Happy holidays. Get yourself some cocoa, curl up in bed with a book, and I'll talk to you guys later on this week. Have a good evening.